that if you are not asking a question, if you would just mute yourself, and that way we can try and maintain a clear line for Kathy to make her presentation. So Kathy is, again, is it the director? I forget what your title is, but the Business Resource Center consultant. Yes, the Business Resource Center. So I'll let her just give a brief introduction to herself and the Business Resource Center and kind of the services that she can provide and how you can take advantage of that, and then we'll open it up for some questions. So go ahead, Kathy.
I appreciate being invited to this meeting. Are we getting feedback? Sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we're good now. I'm going to mute myself. I think that might be part of the problem. So I'll mute myself and we'll let you go.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Kathy Bazan. I have over 6 years of experience working directly with small business owners. Whether they need help writing a business plan, packaging a loan, learning about marketing, social media, and promotions, I'm here to help and grow their businesses. In 6 years, I helped business owners get access to over $60 million in capital. In addition, they created over 450 new jobs. So obviously, I'm here to listen to business owners like all of you wonderful folks out there, find out what your issues are, and see what I can do to come alongside you and solve those issues with you. Right now, I am working with some wonderful folks in Sherwood and just finished writing my first press release for Sherwood Business. Once we get approval for that, we will be sending it out to different newspapers, TV stations, magazines in the area to let them know about the new menu that the restaurant is introducing. So this is just a brief list of what I can do, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Kathy, is there a fee for your service, or how are you being funded? Maybe that's the question.
Okay, I am currently being funded by the CARES Act, the same act that a few months ago sent you a $1,200 check, also sent money to the county. 4 of the chambers of commerce in the South Metro area pooled their funds and decided to hire little old me to do business counseling. So I'm here. I'm available 40 hours a week, Monday to Friday, either by phone, in person, or by Zoom call to help you get through whatever you're trying to handle at this point. Or if you're already set to go, I come alongside. I teach social media and how that can increase your sales, because I've actually done that for a corporation. I help with promotions. I help with creating marketing strategies. So I'm here to help. And I'm completely paid for by the CARES Act. So my services to you are free of charge.
Maybe it would have, I'm just going to interrupt, and there may be questions in the chat. I can't get to that now, but I wanted to just kind of mention that there are 4 business recovery centers in Washington County now, and you're at the one that's closest to us that I think serves this area, which is at the Tualatin Chamber. And I think your focus is Sherwood, Tualatin, and Wilsonville, and maybe the southern part of Tigard is what I've heard. And then, of course, any one of these business recovery centers can help, but you're the one that's specifically in our area. And your services go until what time frame? They're funded by the CARES Act.
Until November 30th is what we understand right now.
Oh, I thought December 30th.
Additional funding comes in, but
yeah. All right, now I'll be quiet.
Yeah, and Kathy, can you maybe just give us a brief history of how the business recovery centers started? Where did that concept come from? How did we get Washington County to buy into this, and just kind of maybe cover kind of the background story of how this came to be?
Absolutely. Okay. Can you hear me all right? Perfect. Okay. Jonathan Taylor, who is the Economic Development Director in Tualatin, Bruce's counterpart, knew that the city of Tualatin was getting CARES money that was coming in. So he proposed the idea based on what he had done in Colorado, which was when they had gotten federal money years ago. They had hired a small business counselor to help these businesses get back on their feet faster, locate the information that they needed about whatever federal aid was going on at that time. So he proposed that this occur. Almost immediately, the other chambers of commerce in this area, and as you mentioned, Bruce, it's Sherwood, Wilsonville, Tigard, Durham, came together and said, we'll contribute the money that we've gotten from CARES to this project, so that instead of having one counselor for 10 hours a week, we can have one counselor for 40 hours a week. So that's how this came together, and it was very quickly done. In the first week of June, the money was presented to this particular area. The job description was on Indeed, I think Friday the 9th of June. I interviewed on June 13th and then came down here for an in-person interview on the 14th, Wednesday, and then I was hired the next day, Thursday, and started on June 15th. So this has been a whirlwind of activity. And I may have those numbers wrong.
Oh, that's good. Maybe it would help also because there's other business resource services around. I mean, this is specifically for the recovery of businesses from COVID. That's specifically what this CARES Act money is for. But there's obviously other programs out there. The PCC is a Small Business Development Center in downtown Portland. How do you relate to that, and how are you different in a sense?
Well, number one, I'm closer to the folks here in the South Metro, but I was actually trained at the SBDC in Arizona, and I'm currently a volunteer for SCORE in Vancouver, Washington. I teach classes for them on digital marketing, social media, how to get your book published. I am an avowed wordsmith, so you just have to know that I'm a writer. Where we differentiate is that I bring to this job a variety of experiences. I am very willing to work with specialists who are at SCORE, who are at SBDC, or GCAP would be another really good example. So when somebody wants to go into government contracting, I am very good about making an introduction to GCAP for them so that they can actually find out how they can become a government contractor and get the support of that organization in gaining access to government bids that are available, to gaining access to SBIR grants that are available, and things of this nature. So we work as a team trying to build economic growth within South Metro.
Okay. I think I'm muted. No, I'm not muted. So there's certainly businesses out there that are maybe not really ready for conventional bank financing. Are there some alternative programs that you work with? I mean, we're all kind of, I think most of us are aware of MESO and other programs that are out there for alternative financing. Do you work with businesses to look at alternative financing sources?
Absolutely. In addition to MESO, which does give loans up to about $5,000, you've got OWAME, which is the Oregon Association of Minority Entrepreneurs. They will give loans up to $75,000. And they love funding people who are of color, women, veterans. So they are focusing on that market. And they're also looking at people who might not be an exact match for a traditional bank loan. In addition, we have other organizations as well. We've got Craft 3 in this area, which tends to look at somebody's character more than the actual business plan and the nuts and bolts of what the company would be doing. I've worked with them successfully on getting funding for a Georgian restaurant, not Georgia the state, Georgia the nation, in Vancouver.
Interesting. Who would guess? Unless there's chat questions, I have some more. Hey, Corey, did you have any before I jump in again?
No, you're doing great, Bruce. I would just, the question that I would ask at this point is, when somebody reaches out to you and you have that first meeting, whether it's by a Zoom call or a phone call or you meet in person, what does that conversation look like? How would you proceed with that conversation?
Absolutely. The very first thing I do is I give a preamble. How did I get here? Kind of answering Bruce's question, how did the CARES Act fund my position? So that people know initially, right off the bat, I'm never going to send them a bill for what I do. And then number two, I ask, what is the business? What are they currently doing? What would they like to be doing in the business? You know, they might not have an online presence for selling their products or services online. They might still need to get a PPP loan, which we can do. And this morning I did find 2 active lenders. So yay team.
Good.
Whatever it is they have a question about, that's what I solve first. And then we take it from there.
Okay. So maybe you could talk a little bit too, unless, Corey, I'm going to jump in.
Go ahead.
Give some examples over the last 6 years, because obviously what you're doing now is really new. Over the 6 years, the kinds of businesses, business size, types of businesses that maybe you've worked with, so that people who are listening get an idea of the scale. That are you obviously not working with Microsoft, you're working with other kinds of businesses, right? So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm from the Sedona, Arizona area. So I worked with a hotel. Actually, I worked with the people who were buying the assets of a hotel. And so that sale was $7.2 million. Not only that, they already had 14 employees in place. So in working them through the transition, I helped them evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of those particular employees. My very first career was as a career counselor, so I'm very good at interviewing people and finding out what they want to do and what they're capable of doing. So we retooled the HR so that certain people got moved to positions of more responsibility, other people stayed where they were. I also helped them by reviewing their hazardous communications protocol. As you may know, about 80% of OSHA fines are related to the fact that a business does not have an up-to-date hazardous communications protocol. So that includes an exit signage plan for the business, an emergency action plan, which says what you're going to do if a particular disaster happens. Do you shelter in place? Do you make a beeline out the front door, and do you meet at a particular location? It also includes the material safety data sheets. So for instance, I'm holding a pen. Almost all of you here have a pen probably right near you. The pen may have a 5-page, up to 5-page MSDS sheet, which shows the first aid measures that you would take if somebody were dumb enough to poke themselves with a pen, drink the ink. You get the idea. If you don't have all 5 pages of that MSDS, that can be a $50,000 a day fine. $10,000 per page per day.
I'll put down my pen right now.
Don't do that. Just go online and look up the MSDS for whatever pen it is you have. But I've helped businesses actually write that entire protocol because I used to edit occupational safety and environmental science textbooks. For an organization that was a YMCA, I actually developed their MSDS program, which filled 3 3-inch binders. 48 hours after I finished, there unfortunately was a very serious accident that caused the evacuation of not only the YMCA, but the hospital next door. So OSHA and the state OSHA descended, assuming that they were going to be leveling a huge fine. When they found how complete my MSDS protocol was, They handed the binders back to the manager and said, great, you're in compliance, and walked off to go look at something else. But I potentially saved the YMCA at least 6 figures in potential fines. So the range of my work covers everything. So from that $7.2 million hotel, I worked all the way down to individual artists and writers and helping them be able to get their books published, get them into Barnes and Noble, get them book signing deals, all sorts of different things. So the size of the different businesses, all over the map. They range everything from veterinarians to aviation specialists.
So Bruce alluded to your position right now is really focused on the recovery through COVID. However, as you're alluding to, there are other focuses that you can and are willing to take. If businesses, if it's either COVID related or not COVID related, you can be available to assist with that, correct?
Absolutely.
And in fact, most things have some relation to COVID when it comes to businesses. So I would think, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you, Bruce.
Okay, so I think that couldn't be too difficult to show that relationship in essence to COVID when the accountants look at it or whatever and say, how is this connected to COVID recovery?
Absolutely, because these are all different aspects of what makes a business successful. So somebody may already have their PPP, but they may need help with another part of the business that will keep them moving forward so that they can thrive in this new economy we've got.
Hey, so I had some, unless there's other people asking questions, I'm going to keep going. And Corey could tell me.
Yeah, let's maybe pause, Bruce, just for a second. We don't have any questions in the chat, but does anyone want to unmute themselves and ask Kathy a question? Okay, Bruce.
Okay, so you talked about business plans, for example. So just getting to the level of work you do just on a business plan, do you guide the business so they prepare the business plan, or if they wanted you to prepare some of it, how does that work?
Okay, I do have several different templates which make it pretty easy to have the business owner do a first draft. And if there is a situation where they're not sure what to do, what I will do is sit with them with the template, looking at the different questions and saying, here's what I'm trying to get out of you. Here's the information I'm looking for. Tell me what you're trying to say. And then I'll type it in. They can see it on the monitor that's facing them or however I'm doing it at that moment, and see if I'm conveying the message that this business has. In the majority of cases, Bruce, I give people the template, they do a first draft, they bring it back to me, and I edit. So I can do either one of those.
Okay. So,
Bruce?
Yeah.
Looks like Joe Gall has a question. Joe, you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Sure, I just unmuted. So 2 things. The chat feature, at least on my phone, isn't working. That may be a reason why you're not getting questions through that tool. Just as a heads up, I don't know what the problem is, but it basically was referring back to an old meeting and it's been concluded. So
okay,
anyway,
good to know. Thank you.
You're not getting many questions. So, but
yeah,
my question
that
I was going to ask via chat is, I'm just curious, since you've been open in the center in Tualatin, what's the most common type of questions you're getting, and how busy are you? Do people know that you're out there, or do we need to do more marketing to make your services aware to the business community?
That is an absolutely wonderful question. We have a wonderful young lady. Her name is Clarissa, who's literally been going around Sherwood, knocking on doors, going, hey, did you know we've got a business center, we can help you. So as a result of her effort, several people have come to me from Sherwood. In addition, to answer the other part of your question, how busy am I? I already have 2 clients who have booked weekly appointments with me all the way through November. So that is a really good sign that people understand the value of what I do, and they want to make sure they get their time, which I think is wonderful. As to how busy I am right at this point, it is getting busier by the day. Yesterday, I took 7 different appointments. Several of those were by phone. They were a quick answer type of a thing. And others were much more detailed because of the level of questions that came in. So can you still get on the calendar? Yes. Is it getting a little tougher? You betcha.
Okay, good answer. Unless there's other questions, I have some more. So I'm looking to Corey to see if I'm interrupting anybody else. Okay, we're good. So restaurants, talk about that for a second. I mean, restaurants, even before this crisis started, were hard to finance. And so how can you help restaurants get financing, for example? Because that's something we want to see more of in our Old Town area, et cetera. So I just was curious about that.
Absolutely. Restaurant financing is a challenge, even in a good economy. And that's because of the failure rate of restaurants, unfortunately. What I have found is that if I go to these lenders like Craft3, which is more innovative, I have an easier time of getting a restaurant funded. Now, here's the situation with a company like Craft3. They've been around for a long time. It's wonderful that they're so established. They do charge a slightly higher interest rate because they are taking more risk than the bank down on the corner. What they're hoping, though, is that once you've got 2 years of great looking financials, you can then go to the bank on the corner and refinance that loan for a lower interest rate. Now, as to marketing for restaurants, what I always look for is what makes a restaurant unusual, what makes it different from its surrounding competitors. For a Mexican restaurant up in Flagstaff, Arizona, they were having a situation where every winter their sales went down. The students at Northern Arizona went home. That's a university there. And so we were trying to find ways of boosting sales. I suggested a tamale fiesta. We created 6 different humorous flyers, which we took around town. I wrote a press release with them, and we worked on it until the owner was happy with it. Then I released it to the newspaper. Long story short, in 6 hours, she sold over 300 tamales. It was the highest single sales day in the company's 3-year history. And it has become something they do every year since then. I'm working with a small bakery here on a Marionberry festival. So that is coming up right here in the South Metro area.
It's not a Sherwood Marionberry festival, is it?
No, I would love to start the Sherwood Marionberry Festival. If you, Bruce, can tell me where and when, I'll write the press release.
Hey, one more question, if I'm not taking room from somebody else. Tech companies, startups, early stage, do you ever work with those and work with them to try to find unique financing, whether it's seed capital or angel capital or something of that sort?
Absolutely. I worked with a company in Vancouver, Washington, that builds very, very large drones. These are drones capable of carrying over 1,000 pounds in weight. So this is not the little one that you bop over the back fence with to see what your neighbor's doing. No, this is a big baby. What I did was I put the CEO in contact with PTAC, which is the Washington equivalent of GCAP, And he was able to land a $250,000 SBIR grant to do initial research into how to get the camera pods on there. He, in addition to that, is working with them on government contracting, obviously, because these are drones that can be used in war zones to send back information about what's going on over there. So yes, I've done quite a bit of that.
I think I'd like to maybe connect you with a company in town that's trying to, at least they were trying to find, they wanted a grant for some lab equipment for COVID related. We didn't know of any grants. We tried so many different places to try to help them, even going to some of the, like the some federal agencies in I think in Seattle and regional offices and that kind of thing. So maybe I could connect you with them offline and just try to see if there may be a way to help them. So
absolutely. Okay. There are many grants out there right now, excuse me, coming out of the federal government. Not only the SBIR type grants, but we also have grants coming from National Institutes of Health and other healthcare related divisions of the government.
Okay, that's great. Let's see.
I just have fun being a walking Rolodex.
Well, that's, I think, what this is how do you connect people? And so do you work, I mean, obviously businesses have their own accountants and they're going to be working with their accountants, their attorneys. Do you help bring any of that together or refer people to other professionals who can help them, or how does that work? How do you work with the other professionals that are working with those businesses?
Absolutely. Corey, I want to thank you for your recommendations for CPAs and attorneys. I do appreciate your work on that very much. Bruce, when somebody comes to me and they say, I really should see a CPA or an attorney about a particular issue, my rule of thumb is to give them the names and numbers of three different people and let that business owner interview those folks, see which one they want to work with. And of course, we've got resources from SCORE here locally, people who can come in and answer certain questions. They can't, like a lawyer or a CPA, say, do this, but they can say, here's the range of things you could do. What do you want to do based on the information I've given you?
Okay.
Kathy, what about folks who are maybe English isn't their first language, so Spanish or Vietnamese or whatever it is? What if you're not able to assist them? Are the resources available for them for you to refer to?
Absolutely. Clarissa, who's doing outreach in Sherwood, and I think she's there today, as a matter of fact. Clarissa is completely bilingual in Spanish. Okay. So if I were dealing with someone whose first language was not English, but their first language was Spanish, and they felt more comfortable conversing in Spanish, we have funds set aside to bring Clarissa in and actually sit in the appointment with me and serve as a translator. As to the other two languages, I mentioned, I think, Vietnamese and Korean. I would need to find somebody as an outside resource because I am not conversant.
That's really relevant, very relevant, because as I think I mentioned, we're getting some money from Business Oregon, and we also got we're getting some CARES Act funds that we're going to then turn around. The two different programs are pretty different programs. We're going to turn around and create that into grants to small businesses. And one of the things we obviously want to do, and it's also a state requirement, is that we go out, particularly in the Business Oregon program, and market that program to what are known as historically disadvantaged businesses in various languages. And the state has given us the marketing material in those languages. And so I think with the boots on the ground that Clarissa, I couldn't say it, Clarissa has, she may know of business owners that would meet those criteria in terms of being historically disadvantaged as it's defined. And so we're going to definitely want to get you that material and ask if you can help identify some businesses early on so that we can make sure that we're doing this in an equitable manner.
And Bruce, women-owned businesses are part of that category too, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's defined as Black, Hispanic, Native American, Asian, and women-owned. That's historically disadvantaged definition. So I just wanted to mention that.
Absolutely. And I'm happy to let you know, I've worked with a lot of women-owned businesses and people of color. In Sedona, I worked with a woman who is a Korean American and helped her get the first food truck permit in Sedona. I know you have food trucks down here. They're ubiquitous. Sedona didn't have any before we started. So she became the first food truck in Sedona. She's actually offering Korean food. And according to Red Book magazine, she has the best food truck in the entire state of Arizona. So the marketing that I did for her when she started was able to get that positive attention. And I just love seeing businesses succeed.
And so I also wanted to say that and I think I said it before we started, as you work with businesses and as they may be thinking about doing something, obviously there's going to be tenant improvement requirements, or they may need something through planning or something through the city. They may want to remain confidential, just working with you in the beginning, which is fine. But when they're ready, we want to be available to help them get whatever permits or whatever encouragement they might need. So you know where to find us.
Absolutely. And the two, well, I shouldn't put it that way. Two of the Sherwood clients that I'm working with right now, I may be introducing to you fairly quickly because they will need the support of your office.
Well, we're ready to do that and ready to bring in the right folks in addition to me from the different services. So that would be great. I know there's probably other questions out there.
Yeah. Does anyone want to unmute and ask a question? Okay. Well, Bruce, do you have any more that you wanna ask?
Well, I just want to make sure that everybody knows how to reach you, and the best way of doing that, we certainly know how to do it, and we're glad to refer anybody to you or everybody to you.
So I did post on the chat your email address and your phone number. So hopefully after Joe suggested maybe there's an issue with the chat, I did ask if people could see that, and a couple responded that they could. So if for some reason somebody else is on here that did not see that or can't see that, then speak up and we'll make sure that we can verbalize that information.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think I'll mention, is there feedback? All right. So I would mention, I know Kathy knows this and Corey knows this, that we've already been marketing. I know Corey has, and we've already sent this out, I think once so far, to about 500 business licensees, information on the program, as well as gotten it on various social media that the city has. But this has got to be done again and again, so that we keep the drum beat up and let people know that this is a service that's right here in this community, in this Metro South area. So we're going to keep doing that and go from there.
Thank you.
Kathy, I'll just ask, Bruce mentioned this earlier, that there are 3 other business recovery centers in Washington County, and they each have their own consultant. Nobody is required to go to any particular one for whatever reason they want to move around, have you had a chance to converse with any of the others? Do the others have any areas of expertise maybe that could be helpful for anyone in particular that you know of?
We have, as mentioned, the other centers. Am I getting feedback again? Or can you hear me okay?
You're good. Once I mute myself, that seems to solve the problem. So I'm gonna mute.
We have different people with different skill sets, as you mentioned. So in Forest Grove, we have 2 women who are both bilingual in Spanish and have been working within that community to build business success. In Hillsborough, we have a man who is experienced in economic development in larger projects. How do you decide on land use for a large chunk of property? So he has a lot of experience in working with cities to be able to get larger projects moving forward. There's also a lady who's bilingual at the Hillsborough office as well. In Beaverton, we have a wonderful, very active lady. She is bilingual as well. She has been working in the community there in Beaverton for an extended period of time. So she has very good contacts in that neck of the woods.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Bruce, do you have anything else? We're coming up on about 45 minutes here, so.
Thought I did. Remember. Let me just make sure I've asked all my questions to date. I think that was all I can think of.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for keeping the conversation going. And thank you again, Kathy, for your willingness to share your services. And thank you for everyone who was able to join today. And as I mentioned, we are recording the call. So as soon as we get that recording, we'll get it up on the website, and hopefully people can either come back to it and review what you've said, or new people will be able to access the information. So unless somebody wants to jump in real fast with a question, we'll go ahead and we'll call it for this week. And again, appreciate everybody's tuning in, and have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Kathy, you still there?
Yeah.
Hey.
Yep.
So I think that was great. I haven't lost you yet, have I?
No, I can still hear you. Oops.
You can hear me.
Hang
That's fine. Hearing is better than seeing me. So that was Jack Benny humor, where you kind of make fun of yourself. So, yeah. Hey, I'm thinking that for Rotary, it might be good if you could maybe do a little bit more presentation, because I'm not sure. I mean, I can ask a lot of questions, but I'd rather actually see if you could maybe just go through some of these things a little bit more, maybe the background. I mean, you talked about so much great stuff, and maybe the history of where this comes from, and that this is for this area and some of the businesses, because I don't know, I don't want to monopolize questions, in case the mayor wants to ask and all of that. Did I lose you, Kathy?
Hi.
Oh, you're
trying to get back in. There we go.
Oh, Thanks. Did you hear anything I just said?
The phone descended. Sorry.